In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about genetics and chance. Solving genetics problems is all about probabilities. Probabilities have to do with chance. This is kind of like rolling the dice or flipping a coin. There are actually two ways to solve genetics problems. We've talked about the first way using our Punnett squares. Okay, if we look at this problem, purple flowers are dominant to white flowers. If two heterozygous plants are crossed, what is the chance of getting a white flowered offspring? So from the problem, we know that the parents are both big P, little p. Okay, and we want an offspring that is white. So the genotype little p, little p. Okay, we could do a Punnett square to solve this problem. Okay, we can put one parent's genotype across the top, one parent's genotype along the side, and then fill in the Punnett square to get the results. After doing this Punnett square, we see that the chance of getting a white flower, little p, is 1 out of 4, okay, or 25%. We can also do this using some math. We know that the chance of the first parent giving the little p to the offspring is 1 out of 2. Okay, the chance that the second parent will give the little p to the offspring is also 1 out of 2. If we multiply these together, we get a 1 out of 4 chance. In this activity, we're going to be using potato heads as models for our genetics practice. Now, I'm assuming most of you probably don't have a bunch of potato heads laying around your house. Those of you with kids, feel free to borrow theirs. Okay, instead, we have paper cutouts that you guys can use to help visualize these genetic traits and how they're passed on. To simulate the role of random chance in the production of our young tater-tot offspring, we are going to use 2 coins. Okay, so you guys will need 2 coins, pennies, dimes, whatever you have lying around. We will say that heads is going to be dominant, and we'll say that the tails side is the recessive. You will see a list of traits. To begin, you're going to flip your 2 pennies and actually determine randomly what your Mr. Potato Head looks like and what your Mrs. Potato Head looks like. After you have your parent potato heads, you will flip more pennies to determine what alleles the parent will pass on to the offspring, and you will create a little miniature tater tot. It just so happens that I have a surplus of potato heads around my house, having 3 kids. So I'm going to demonstrate some of the procedures on how to produce these potatoes. So our first trait is actually the sex of the potatoes. You don't have a choice on that. Mr. Potato Head is XY, he's a male. Mrs. Potato Head is XX, she is a female. Trait number 2 has to do with smiling. So there are 3 options. Okay, if the trait is big T dominant, okay, you're going to have smiling with teeth. If it is heterozygous, he or she will be smiling with lips. And if it's homozygous recessive, they'll be sticking out their tongue. Okay, so to determine that, I'm going to take 2 pennies and I'm going to flip both of them. Okay. And in this case, I actually have 2 tails. So homozygous recessive, okay, you can jot that down in your handout. So my potato head is going to have his tongue sticking out. Okay, then we're going to move on to our next trait, which is the nose. Okay, this is completely dominant. So if there is a dominant allele, he will have his nose on normal. And if it's homozygous recessive, his nose will be vertical. So again, I'm going to flip my pennies, and I got a heterozygote, one heads, one tails. So I will stick his nose on correctly. Okay, so this is my potato so far. Our third trait is going to be ears. Okay, again, completely dominant. If there's a dominant allele, he will have ears. If it's homozygous recessive, he will have no ears. Okay, again, I flipped heterozygous, one heads, one tail. So Mr. Potato Head got lucky. He gets 2 ears. Okay, so we're going to continue this for the other traits. Okay, I'll do one more with the hat and the shoes. So this one's kind of like blood types, and it's codominant. So there are 2 alleles, H for hat, S for shoes. Okay, so I'm going to flip again, and I'm going to say that heads is H, S will be tails. Okay, and I again got a heterozygote. So what that means is that Mr. Potato Head will be wearing a hat, and he will have shoes. Okay, so I've got hats and shoes on my potato head. Okay, so from here you're going to flip again for arms and then for eyes. All the potatoes will have eyes, but whether or not he has glasses, okay, if he is homozygous recessive, he'll have to wear glasses. So after some more coin flipping, I have my happy couple. Okay, I've also recorded all of their genotypes over here on my whiteboard. Alright, so here are my genotypes for Mr. Potato Head. Okay, rolling for the alleles for the gamete is going to be a little bit different than rolling for the genotypes. So we're only going to be using 1 penny this time. We're going to flip heads or tails. If it lands on heads, we will take the left hand allele. If the coin lands on tails, we'll take the right hand allele, and that is the one that Mr. Potato Head will donate to this gamete. So to start, I rolled a head, okay, which means that Mr. Potato Head is going to donate an X to his offspring. For the second trait, Mr. Potato Head is homozygous. That means it doesn't matter which allele he will give. It's always going to be a lowercase t. So I'm going to go ahead and record that. Okay, lowercase t for the second trait. For the third trait, I rolled a tails. So Mr. Potato Head will donate the right hand allele, which is a recessive lowercase d. Okay, you're going to continue to flip for the other traits and determine what other alleles Mr. Potato Head will donate to his gamete. After some more coin flipping, I have the results for Mr. Potato Head. Now it's time to work on the gamete for Mrs. Potato Head. Okay, again, we're going to see that anything that is homozygous, it doesn't matter which allele she gives, they'll be the same. So for the first allele, she's going to donate an X. For the second allele, I'll have to flip the coin. Okay, after flipping, I got a heads, which means that she will donate the left hand allele, which is a capital T. Okay, the next 3 traits are all homozygous, meaning that she will just give a little d, a big E, and the IS. Okay, I'll have to flip again for the last one, or for the second to last one. Okay, I flipped and got tails, so a little a, and the last one is homozygous again. So now that we have both sets of alleles for the gametes, we're going to combine those into a genotype for the tater tot. So for this particular tater tot, we see that she is going to be XX, okay, meaning that she is a female. She's going to be heterozygous, big T, little t for the second trait, homozygous, recessive for the second trait, or for the third trait, heterozygous for the next trait. She's going to have hats and shoes, heterozygous for the A's, and she'll have to wear glasses because she's homozygous recessive for the L's. So when you're all done, you can build your tiny tater and see that this unique individual will be a combination of the two parents. All right, so I hope this activity is helpful, allowing you guys to visualize some of these ideas with genetics.